welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast. This is episode 121. And this is May, and May is Thyroid Awareness Month in Australia. And I think what is great about that, well, there's lots of great things about that, but one is that my guest today is from Australia. And so that
Yay.
always is nice. Yay. Libby Munro, who I'm thrilled to have all the way from Brisbane, she's just in a few suburbs away from where I live, which is very rare. I think that's only happened, I can't even think, maybe once. We've had a few other Australians, but I don't know about other from, maybe one other person from Brisbane, but so I'm looking forward to getting into chatting to Libby, but I just want you to know a little bit about her first. Libby grew up in a cattle station, so she's a true outback Queenslander. That's pretty Australian to live to grow up in a cattle station, and then started following a passion for acting. Graduated from NIDA, which is a big drama education facility, in 2008. Then has enjoyed a really fantastic career on stage and screen, and you'll get that sense from her when she's talking. And if you're one of her gazillion followers on TikTok and Instagram, you'll know that she's just a complete natural presenter, just has that, all that experience from being on stage really helps in her communication all about thyroid health as well, which you're going to experience for yourself in a few minutes. But what she found was that actually took a big toll on her physical health. And so it was during her time at NIDA that she was first really impacted by that diet, stress, maintaining the busy schedule. I can't imagine what it's like to be a theatre artist. I imagine it is pretty hectic. And that's when she was diagnosed with Hashimoto's when she was 25. And so there began a parallel passion and interest in health, lifestyle, and nutrition. So like many of us, Libby had to take her health into her own hands, studied her autoimmune disease, implemented diet and lifestyle changes, and has been able to put her Hashimoto's into remission, which is amazing. So, but it doesn't end there. Libby was working on a film in LA. That just sounds like, glamour, doesn't it? Working on a film in LA 2017, and hired a nutrition coach from an American company called Black Iron Nutrition. And that set her down a really interesting path of further study in nutrition and working for them as a health coach. She came back to Australia with COVID-19, and as did so many Australians come back here at that time. And so you really use that time being back here in Australia to study as a nutrition coach and really dive into how to help people with Hashimoto's and autoimmunity and gut health, and started a fabulous social media presence, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I'm going to ask her a bit about that. But so not only helping people with Hashimoto's and thyroid health, she's still doing some acting, which is fantastic. I love that balance, working for the Queensland Theatre Company. Last year she was in a season of the Appleton Ladies Potato Race. Now, I have no idea what that is, but maybe I'll ask her about that. And if you've heard of Netflix, probably have. Have you watched Joe versus Carol? I got to say I haven't, but Libby is in it. So that might be one to look out for when you're looking for a Netflix show to, to fill in your evenings for unwinding and relaxing. And she also makes felt hats. What don't you do, Libby? And so I guess you're after a fur felt hat, then look up Bluegrass Hat Company, and that is all about keeping life in balance. And goodness me, Libby, what a fascinating path you've led to this point. So welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast.
Thanks, Annabelle. I'm really happy to be here. I love talking all things thyroid because anybody who has that issue is fascinated, and there is so much information out there. So I appreciate you getting all different types of people on this podcast with all different experiences in their own thyroid health and also treating thyroid health.
Yeah. Well, I think what I've learned in the last few years with this podcast is we really have such a fabulous global thyroid health community. There's some amazing people. I've had such a privilege to meet and talk to incredible people. And whilst we know that it's hard to get help for thyroid health, at least we know that there are people out there who are on the cutting edge and who are we're all doing our own little bit. And so, yeah.
I feel much more connected to the entire community, since getting online and starting social media
Mm,
channels dedicated to thyroid health, it's enabled me to connect with people all over the world and share information. I actually
yeah.
feel incredibly blessed to live in this particular period of time, because when I was diagnosed 15 years ago, 17 years ago, there was just nothing. There was nowhere to get
Mm,
this information. There was no one just like me going through this. Every doctor I saw didn't have Hashimoto's and therefore didn't really understand what it was about.
mm-hmm,
And I felt very alone. And
mm,
right now, I feel like there is this incredible community, people finding each other, seeking out information. And I have started a group on Facebook called Heal My Hashies, which is the protocol name that I've given it. And we have over 3,000 people sharing recipes and where to get thyroid testing done and
mm,
protein powders that are
yeah,
hypoallergenic. Like, just things like that where we can share information with each other is incredibly useful. And I do think that people are feeling less isolated with this very confusing condition where
yeah,
they see other people going through the same thing as them and they go, oh my gosh, I'm not crazy. This is
yep,
happening to other people too. And I find that
yeah,
actually incredibly helpful with
yeah.
this condition. Mm,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was the
mm.
same. I mean, I think I was diagnosed 25 years ago. I'm that
Yeah.
little bit older, and yeah, it was. I mean, there was nothing. I remember listening to some cassettes
Yeah, there
on
you go.
yam cream, which is not really directly thyroid, but it was sort of hormonal, and I don't
Yep.
know. But I remember taking those cassettes to my doctor, who actually listened to them, and
Wow.
I know. So that was, that was quite incredible back then. But
Yep.
yes, there was very little information, but lucky there is now. So if you're listening now, but people still have trouble being diagnosed. So, that's still a
Yep.
frustration.
Yeah.
Was that a difficult process for you, Libby, being diagnosed with Hashimoto's, or like tell us a little bit about what led to you, obviously all the busyness, but tell us a little bit about your thyroid story.
Yes, I have a bad case of the busy a lot of the time. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the way I sort of function. So I have to
Yeah.
manage that as well as possible. But yes, 17 years ago, when I was at drama school, was when I was diagnosed properly. Like you, I think I probably had it as a teenager. I was at
Mm,
boarding school and I got sick a lot and
right.
had a lot of issues with food sensitivities that I didn't understand at the time, and constipation and incredible fatigue and insomnia, lots of issues like that at school.
Yeah,
But when I was at
that's
drama
the
school
total
is when
picture,
it,
really, isn't it? Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
in retrospect, I can tell
In
that I had those
retrospect. Yeah.
issues most of my life. But
Yeah.
certainly when I was at NIDA was when it came to a head, when it really
Mm,
became quite obvious that I was sick. I was very, very thin, which was definitely part of the pressure of the industry and this particular drama school. There was only 9 women in my year out of
is
about
that right? Oh,
3,000 people who auditioned. So the
wow.
competitiveness is insane. Yeah. And they sort
Yeah.
of, pit you against each other. That's besides the point. I think I put a lot of pressure on myself and I wasn't eating. And we work, 60 hours a week
Mm,
on stage, and very, very physical, very emotionally taxing. I'd moved away from home, was living on my own, and just not taking care of myself, honestly, with food in particular,
mm,
and sleep. I didn't understand how to take care of myself. Sounds
yeah.
silly, but looking back,
Well,
I
not
go,
really. I mean, how many 25-year-olds really do know how to look after themselves?
well, I feel like this next generation are incredibly, they're much better educated than we were
Mm,
about protein and about
yeah, that's
sleep
true.
or taking care of yourself or even gut
Hmm.
health. They seem to know a hell of a lot more than I did back then.
Well, that's
Uh,
easy. They can easily access that information too, in a
they
way
can a lot
yeah.
more, and they sort of have
Mm,
influencers, showing them how to work out, whereas all I knew what to do was to run back then. I was
hmm.
running an hour a day and eating as little as possible. So
Right.
essentially just destroying my health and
Yeah.
particularly my nervous system.
Mm,
And I started gaining weight quite uncontrollably. And
mm,
obviously, I was just eating nothing and just gaining weight. And the teachers noticed and had talks with me about it, and I was just beside myself, like miserable. And I think I was also quite depressed. I'd sort of burst into tears a lot and feel incredibly overwhelmed. I just wasn't coping. And I knew something was wrong. I knew, and particularly because I went away on holidays in the Christmas break, and I went to Cambodia to visit my brother, who's a Cambodian citizen. And I was there for quite a while, sort of 5 or 6 weeks, and everything seemed to resolve itself. You know,
Oh,
I
wow.
just was fine. I was healthy. I was eating. I was sleeping. I sort of lost a bit of weight. And then, of course, I went back to NIDA for the next year, and everything got worse again. So going to doctors, they definitely diagnosed me with hypothyroidism pretty quickly. I also had a bit of hirsutism. I had
Oh, what's
polycystic
that?
ovaries.
What's
I did
hirsutism?
have that checked, like the internal scan. Oh, when you get like black hair on your face, it's sort of a sign of high testosterone, low estrogen,
Okay.
progesterone, so hormonal imbalance, just dark hair appearing in places it shouldn't.
Yep.
And that's a sign of PCOS as well. And they put me on a pill to help with the PCOS, I had very low estrogen and progesterone. Put me on thyroxine. And then I went to see an endocrinologist, and I had insulin resistance, and he put me on metformin. And so I was on 3 different medications, and I kept gaining weight, and I was miserable and tired. And I just didn't understand. I was just like, I'm too young to be on all of these medications and to not feel better. I don't understand what's going on. And I was tearing my hair out at the time. Well, my hair was falling out on its own, so I didn't need to tear it out, did I? I eventually found a doctor who was my mum's. She was a GP, but she also was a naturopath. She also did acupuncture, so a very holistic female doctor. She was the first person to test my cortisol. And it turned out to be 3 times that of a normal person. It was off the charts, to the point where they actually gave me a CT scan. They were worried about my pituitary gland, that there might be a pituitary tumor or something causing that kind of a spike.
Yep.
It wasn't. I was that stressed and not managing my stress, so still running, not sleeping, and kind of revving myself up each day. I'd play really loud rock music and things to get myself psyched for a massive day, not taking care of myself. So her treatment at first for Hashimoto, so she checked my antibodies and my cortisol, diagnosed me with Hashies, and was like, it's your cortisol you need to work on. So I got off all the medications under her supervision, but I just went off all of that for now, balanced my blood sugar, started meditating. So balancing my blood sugar meant eating protein 4 to 5 times a day. I end up buying protein bars, having eggs for breakfast rather than oats, having a proper lunch, where I used to go to the servo and get a low-fat yogurt. That had 60 grams of sugar in it, right? So actually having a lunch that I would pre-pack, I would meal prep chicken and vegetables and rice and things like that, eating properly, and then sleeping rather than exercising. Like, I really did stop exercising. I'd walk, usually to uni and back, or I'd do a bit of yin yoga, and I did a meditation, like a group meditation on a Sunday, and started listening to audio tapes for meditation. And within about 3 months, my weight balanced out, my hair stopped falling out. Like, my brain just cleared up. You know that feeling when you go into remission and the brain fog disappears and you can finally think clearly. And of course, it all affects your voice as well. So my voice got better on stage, which is really important.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So did you get that kind of hoarse, gravelly voice?
Yep.
Yeah.
And losing my voice more frequently. Yes.
Yeah.
And just
which
that.
you must have really noticed in
Absolutely.
Studying as a drama student. Yeah, absolutely. More, probably more noticed. You maybe were more tuned into it perhaps than the average thyroid patient.
I think so. I think I was a bit more, I'd say, stressed about smaller changes in my body. where
Mm.
I would say not being under the spotlight like that, you gain 3 or 4 kilos, it's not the end of the earth, and you might go, oh, well, I'll get that off at the end of the year. Whereas I'm,
Mm.
in costumes and swimsuits and lingerie
Yeah.
in front of people, I was freaking out about those small
Yeah.
changes,
Yeah.
and I couldn't cope. So yeah, it definitely, the career was I think what triggered it, but also what made me incredibly conscientious in healing it,
Mm.
which was in the end a blessing. I do try to see Hashimoto's as a blessing for me,
Yeah.
because before Hashies, I didn't know how to take care of myself. And
Mm-hmm.
in teaching myself how to heal from Hashimoto's, what I've essentially learned is how to take care of my body, Hashimoto's or not. I've
Yeah.
learned how to balance my blood sugar, what exercise works for my body. I
Mm-hmm.
make sure I get enough sleep, all because I could trigger my autoimmunity. But
Yeah.
really now at 42, my friends are coming to me going, how do you look so good? How do you stay lean? Why do you have so much energy? And how can you get so much done? I'm like, well,
Yeah.
because I figured out 17 years ago how to take care of myself. And
Yeah.
for other people, the priority wasn't to take care of their health at that young age.
Yeah, yeah. I think it is a gift. I mean, it doesn't always feel like a gift, but once you've come through and you've been able to
Probably
see
out the
some
other side.
changes, it's out the other side, you do look back, and I think the same thing. I mean, I'm 50 in 2 months' time, and I think, yeah, like I wouldn't have made all those changes if I didn't have to. Like, let's be real, but if I hadn't, I'd probably be really starting to feel it now. Like,
Even things like balancing your hormones. At
mm,
that age, it was so normal to just be on the pill. And I went off the pill going, I need to learn about my own cycle. So tracking my cycle from 25, I'm now 17 years in, knowing how many days and when my luteal
mm,
phase and how I feel and being in tune with my body.
yeah,
And most of my friends have gone, oh, that's taken care. I don't need to know that, because they haven't needed to take care of that part. But then it
mm,
comes to this stage where we're entering perimenopause or things like that, and they have no idea about their own bodies. And
yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
really grateful for that whole journey, let
Yeah,
alone
I
for
think
leading me
that's the
here to
gift
helping
of
others.
that's the gift of chronic health illness,
Yeah,
chronic health
yeah,
issues, is that you have to be chronically then healthy,
yeah,
because it's not something that just goes away quickly. There's no quick fix. And so
yeah.
it does require that long-term diet and lifestyle approach, which I know we're both really passionate about. And
Yeah.
yeah, so
I think
Libby,
sometimes that mindset shift is a missing
mm,
component for people too, where they might see having to change their diet or lifestyle as a sacrifice.
mm-hmm,
Whereas
yeah,
if you can mindset shift that into, I get to do this for my body, or this is part of taking care of my
yeah,
body, and at the end of the road, I'm going to feel a lot better
yeah,
than I would have if I didn't make these changes. So,
yeah.
seeing it as a positive is much better than sort of punishing yourself with the changes that you have to make.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And I mean, even if you in that grieving process, I think there is a grieving process,
There is.
but know that, yeah, if the sooner you can switch that mindset, the better that you'll
Yeah.
find it, and the easier that you'll find it.
That this is a
Exactly.
lifetime of health decisions for you,
Yeah.
that this is now a way of life rather
Mm.
than a diet or a period of time to get
Yeah.
better. This is now actually creating a lifestyle of habits that support your autoimmune disease.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I call it the thyroid friendly lifestyle. Like, what are we
Yeah,
doing that's thyroid
that's it.
friendly, that, then is going to enable me to enjoy my life and have all the energy to give, and
Yes.
to serve and to help. And, you can actually do all those things when you've got energy. But when you're so consumed with your own health because it's having such a negative impact on you, you can't actually
Yeah.
be all that. You can't be expressing all of the good things that you
You can't
have
live to
and
your full
are.
potential, can you?
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely.
Mm.
So, Libby, we're going to dive into some conversation around gut health. And so, is gut health something that you've particularly, has that been part of your healing journey?
Yes, originally I had a major flare up in 2014. So this was my first real understanding of the microbiome, of the impact of antibiotics, of the impact of bacterial dysbiosis or parasites on Hashimoto's, because I'd gone into remission in 2007, 2008, gone off all medication, and I'd been in remission quite happily for 5-6 years, and really had sort of put it out of my head. I knew I had Hashimoto's, but not taking medication, really not seeing any impact of it on my body, living my life. Then 2014, I was in Europe and got a terrible sort of flu and ended up with an ear infection and a blocked ear. I had a lot of trouble breathing, in the shower, in the steam, trying to get all the mucus out, and couldn't hear through one ear. And my mum is like, you should go to the doctor. It might get very painful on the flight home. That was the concern. But I was in Italy for 3 days or something and went to an Italian doctor, and he didn't speak English and gave me antibiotics, which I felt compelled to take at the time. That was about May of 2014. By October 2014, so I took the antibiotics. It didn't clear up my ear. I also didn't have pain on the way home, so it did feel pointless in taking those. But by about October, I had chronic fatigue. My antibodies were in the thousands. I was so sick and couldn't get out of bed, also couldn't sleep. That incredible overwhelm and fatigue and weight gain and the whole gamut. And I saw a lovely naturopath in Sydney, and she was the one who said, I think we should test your gut, do a microbiome mapping stool test. And we got that back, and I had blastocystis hominis, the parasite, 4+, which means it's pretty much taken over, and then all of my good bacteria was very, very low. And we traced that back to the antibiotics. Also keeping in mind, my entire childhood was antibiotics. I had terrible gut health, always growing up. Grew up in the outback with lots of chemicals, sheep dip, cattle, always working with chemicals. But then antibiotics from 6 months old, and lots and lots of antibiotics in boarding school. I had bronchitis every year, and they'd always give you antibiotics. So I think that a lot of that destruction was done beforehand, but then this was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, so it could have been one of the initial triggers anyway to your Hashimoto's,
probably,
I'd early on. So. Certainly part of that perfect storm anyway.
And at this stage, I am who I am, and the reason that I was able to heal Hashimoto's in the first place was because I'm so dogged about my health, and I am always, what can I do about it? And then I just do it. I prioritize my health. I go, I cannot feel like this, so I have to do something about it. So I went down the path of researching and trying to find out how to heal from blasto. And so I went on this epic sort of herbal protocol, and I also did this gut healing smoothie. I read about starving the parasite as well, because they feed on sugars and starch and certain fibers and things like that. So I did this epic 2-3 weeks of killing blasto, got rid of it, and my Hashimoto's went away and my health came back really fast. I did it over Christmas because I had to kind of double down and not work. I was so tired. Then I went back to work on a show about a week after Christmas, and again, it was like a light coming on in my brain. I could think clearly. I had this energy, and everything just stabilized, and I was fascinated. I was hooked. From then on, like gut health, I was like, oh my God, I'm never taking antibiotics again. And I've been very much into prebiotic fibers and probiotics and doing gut healing protocols and things since then. Now, fast forward to when I was studying nutrition, my partner ended up with a terrible gut health condition. We didn't know what it was, but he was in debilitating pain and couldn't stand up after eating. And no one could tell us.
That's pretty debilitating.
Awful bloating, diarrhea, constipation, and nobody could figure out. He went and had a colonoscopy, an endoscopy, And I'm always of the opinion, I can figure this out. I can find out what this is. Researching, trying to find it, and spoke to this naturopath again in Sydney, and she was like, have you considered SIBO?
Ah.
What is SIBO? Anyway, so then I go down this path, and I was working as a nutritionist in Brisbane at the time, and I went, oh, this is amazing. Up to 50% of people with Hashimoto's have SIBO.
Such a
Up
high
to
overlap,
70,
isn't it?
78%
50%,
of
wow,
people.
that's a lot. Yeah.
Up to 78% of IBS is SIBO.
Ah.
So I went, well. So then I went and studied SIBO. I did my Master of SIBO, they call it, which sounds very fancy, but it was actually the greatest study I've ever done, because I got to do a deep dive on the microbiome, gut dysbiosis, what works, what herbs, all the different conditions, because even in the SIBO study, you obviously study everything else at the same time, and the different types of SIBO, because there is methane producing SIBO, hydrogen producing SIBO, hydrogen sulfide producing SIBO, and different plans of attack. But going down that path just exploded my mind into what we're treating, how we treat it, and certainly the suffering endured by people with gut health issues on top of autoimmunity. So then I really niched down into Hashimoto's and gut health, and obviously the connection between the two. And in developing the protocol that I wrote called Heal My Hashies, I have 2 gut healing protocols in there that I swear by. One, to heal leaky gut, which they do say is a trigger for autoimmunity, is a key component of developing autoimmunity. But I've also got a microbiome boosting phase in there for anyone who's done antibiotics or has poor gut health or gut dysbiosis. This protocol is designed to really feed the good bacteria and regenerate that healthy microbiome that can then dominate the bad bacteria and parasites, so that you've got this robust microbiota that's fighting the bad guys. But also, and it was a study they did in the UK to improve the mucosal barrier of the intestines, which is where all your immune cells are. So helping 70% of your immune cells in your gut lining. So helping that mucosal barrier, which tightens the junctions, improves the quality of those immune cells, and then also where the good bacteria can live, improving that environment. And you see incredible turnarounds in people's health when they improve their microbiome. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, and for Graves and Hashimoto's, and improving their gut health always improves their health markers at the end of the line, like not just the diet and lifestyle components, but what I call the 8 pillars of autoimmunity, which also includes gut health, nervous system calming. So in the SIBO study, sort of towards the end of the study, they were talking about different parts of the world, different studies they've done in healing SIBO, which for people out there, if you don't know what it is, I'm sorry, is small intestine bacterial overgrowth. So you've got your stomach, which empties into your small intestine, which empties into your large intestine. And it's when bacteria overgrows in that small intestine, you get bloating and gas just underneath your belly button, and particularly about 15 to 20 minutes after eating, and certain types of foods called FODMAPs. But in the SIBO study, they were talking about a big study they did in Scandinavia, where they treated SIBO with hypnotherapy only. And they had better outcomes than treating it with antimicrobials, with herbs, and far superior outcomes than treating it with antibiotics. So it goes antibiotics, you have about a 56% success rate. Antimicrobials is around 75%, and then hypnotherapy is even higher again in the 80s. So I sort of treat it. It really is. So I went, oh my God, how is that a thing? Hypnotherapy?
How is that a thing? Yeah. I mean, so I understand hypnotherapy for calming central nervous system and things like that, but for actually changing gut microbiome.
So it's that
Wow.
gut-brain connection.
Yeah, okay.
Because you're tapping into the vagus nerve,
Mm.
because you are calming that nervous system response, you can actually calm the reactivity to the food. Your
Wow.
brain sort of has a groove that it learns when you eat food and react to it. The body gets used to that. And so
Mm.
you have a channel in your brain that knows that it reacts to food. So if you can create new channels in your brain via hypnotherapy, you are less reactive to food. You can then start to improve motility, which improves the outcomes of SIBO. So then I went, what? So then I went and studied hypnotherapy.
Oh, right. Wow. Well, of course.
Of course. I
Yeah.
went, well, if I'm going to be treating SIBO and gut health, and I know
Yeah.
that hypnotherapy improves outcomes for Hashimoto's as well because of
Mm.
nervous system calming, then
Yeah.
I wanted to add that to my toolkit to help
Mm.
people so that I've got a bit more of a holistic approach where I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
treat you with the herbs. I know the nutrition components and sleep and exercise and gut
Yeah.
health. But how about this esoteric part of calming your nervous
Mm.
system and creating new pathways,
Yeah.
neurological pathways?
Yeah.
I kind of want that in my toolkit as well.
Yeah, wow. So, and are you, I'm assuming you're using it then in your
Yes.
toolkit? Yes.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah,
In the Heal My Hashies protocol, I've got a hypnotherapy for constipation because it
ah,
really helps with constipation, the
mm.
relaxing, letting
Oh,
go.
yeah. Yep,
It's
yep,
a
yep.
wonderful hypnotherapy about sort
Mm.
of rivers and, like seeing flowing rivers, and it's lovely.
Yeah.
I've got a hypnotherapy script in there for to stop feeling overwhelmed, because I do
Yeah.
find that overwhelm is a big issue for a lot of my clients.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's one for
Yeah.
insomnia. So specifically, hypnotherapy is incredibly useful for sleep, for behavioral changes. I'm
Yeah.
going to do
Mm-hmm.
one this week for my premium members. I had a woman reach out who's having a lot of trouble changing her diet. It's like, when I'm tired or overwhelmed, I want the bad food. And
Yeah.
so she's not prioritizing her health
Yeah.
and making those choices when they're difficult to make, when you're not feeling motivated,
Yeah,
when you're
which is
not
of
feeling
course the
disciplined.
hardest time. Yeah, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
do a hypnotherapy for her
Ah, yeah.
around creating those new behaviors or the new thought
Mm.
patterns about how can I fulfill that need for, if I'm exhausted and I'm trying to reward myself, is there a better
Mm.
way of rewarding myself than sabotaging my diet? Of course there is.
Mm.
We just need her to discover those ways herself so that
Yeah.
she makes those better choices. I think it's kind of amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. And I know when we were chatting prior to this, we were talking a bit about, well, I didn't know to that extent with the hypnotherapy, but I knew you wanted to talk about that, and also the EFT, the emotional freedom technique. Is that something you're
Yes,
using as well?
it is. I have that
Yep.
in Heal My Hashies as well. I find that for people who are not very good at closing their eyes, sitting
Mm-hmm.
still and focusing on a voice or a storyline, it's an active way
Mm.
of switching your nervous system into rest and digest. And some
Yeah.
people are more action driven.
Yeah.
People with ADHD, people with anxiety, they can sit there
Mm.
with their eyes open and you are physically, so EFT, emotional freedom technique, is tapping
Yeah.
on specific parts of your body connected to the vagus nerve, which then
Mm.
switches your nervous system into rest and digest. So I find that doing it with people, it's only 2 to 3 minutes. So it's
Yeah.
not a big time commitment for people who feel very stressed and busy.
Mm.
And you can feel sensorially that it's working even while you're doing it. So
Yeah.
I'll go through it with clients, and even while I'm doing it, I can feel my body I get sort of goosebumps, and my feet get really grounded in the floor, and my breath deepens, and I go,
Mm.
oh, that feels nice. And so
Yeah.
I find that different things work for different people. So I want to have
Mm.
options in there so that people don't avoid stress management. If
Yeah.
we can give it a broad term, I feel
Yeah.
like it's the one that people find the hardest to do. They can change
Yeah.
their diet. They go,
Yeah.
I'm taking care of my sleep, but how do I change
Yeah.
stress? I go, you
Yeah.
can't you can't remove things from your life that are stressful, but you can do stress management techniques every day that will help your nervous system and your body to cope.
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just hard to do.
It's definitely the hardest piece of my puzzle. Like absolutely. Like over time, and I've got a bit of a theory that there's a lot of people with autoimmune diseases, that are that exactly what you were describing before. Busy, driven, motivated. And that with that comes a lot of great things. That's you get things done. You've got the motivation to get to the bottom of why am I feeling like this? I'm going to solve it.
Well, you would have spoken to you would have spoken to people on your podcast about the MTHFR gene, and that there's personality traits associated with that, which are perfectionism, being an overachiever, and a lot of that sort of drive and striving is the same gene that is can be responsible for autoimmunity. So yes, I think a lot of people have these traits. Givers, doers, always doing things for other people, overworking, overachieving, being really hard on yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of those are in line with autoimmunity because they're in line with genetics.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I was just I was editing a podcast today with that was all about stress, like basically about healing your Hashimoto's through healing your ability to respond emotionally.
Yes.
And so it's, I think when you come from when you have that personality that's maybe a bit more harder to calm, to calm, maybe a bit more naturally, you're not in that nice rest and digest, you don't have a calm sympathetic nervous system, it is hard. And so to have tools like the hypnotherapy, I mean, the EFT tapping is certainly something I've done from time to time, but I forget to do it. I haven't done it for ages.
Exactly.
I've done a great podcast interview with Brad Yates, who's like one of the tapping legends. And so but I forget to do it still, so I think it is sometimes it's so important. And it's that you think, well, I've got to do this. I can change my diet. I can do that exercise. I can, I can do, but it's often the not doing.
The not doing. Yes, I agree. I think, I can easily I haven't eaten gluten in 17 years, but to every day meditate is really, really tough. And it's only when I get sick, get overwhelmed, get burnt out that I end up going, okay, I have to meditate every day.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm a bit like that too. It's like, I know.
I have to manage my stress. Just let me finish this workload first.
Yeah, that's right. I'll get to that.
Then I'll manage my stress.
But that's where, I think things like the tapping or something I've done on and off for years that I find helpful is jigsaw puzzles. And because I think it is proactive, like it's active. It's an active form of meditation. I'm not so good with just meditating, but but you do get into a meditative kind of space because you just like, where's that edge piece? Where's that tree? I'm just looking for that color, and you just...
Actually, I would say that you are in a trance. So hypnotherapy is really about absorption into something, a focus. Okay. So when you are in trance, you are focused on my voice and on the images or whatever that I'm giving to you. And a trance-like state can be something like doing a jigsaw puzzle where your brain isn't filled with 100 different things because you're trying to find that specific piece. So you're both visually and mentally focused or absorbed into a task, which is perfect.
Yeah. So it's just finding, I think, it's finding what works, like you said before, finding what works for you but making sure you find something is probably...
Well, and being aware of those sort of personality traits where I know I'm a busy person in general. So then I just recently, because I go to hypnotherapy myself to work on my sleep and my stress management, because I do find it really helps. And I've stopped having my headphones on when I walk. I walk my dogs every morning, and I find that I just fill my brain with, books and podcasts, and I'm constantly busy in my head. And about a month or two ago, I just went, okay, let's just try having that 1 hour a day free of input. Yeah, and so it's become a meditative walk where I'm observing, I'm looking, I'm breathing, I'm really present with the dogs and present with myself and with the world around me. And that's changed how I start my day. And it's
that's
definitely
great.
changed the way I feel during the day. Because if I sort of, start the day with 50,000 pieces of information, then that's sort of how my brain and my nervous system then travels for the rest of the day. So certain things, understanding your personality, and then having certain tools, specifically in the evening to calm down, to wind down, I think is really hard for a lot of people. It's certainly been hard throughout my life. And so having a hypnotherapy to just pop on, listen to like a sleep hypnotherapy or something, then just takes me out of my head into that absorption, which then calms my nervous system to be able to go to sleep.
Which has that feedback to your gut health, to your brain health, to your thyroid. Like, it's so
Absolutely. Yes. And sleep helps us produce things like serotonin, which impacts our immune system. And the production of certain hormones overnight is dependent on a healthy microbiome and deep and restful sleep, which we all know with thyroid issues is sort of the first thing to go. I feel that.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating to really think, well, heal your gut health. You need to manage the stress.
Yes.
It's not just
so
about
stress also stress suppresses stomach acid. So and now that I know all of these things about my gut health, I can see changes. I've just had a stressful couple of weeks, and I wasn't hungry. It suppresses your appetite, and I'd feel like food sort of sat in my stomach many hours after meals. When I'd go to bed, I'm like, oh, it's still there. So you need a little bit of digestive enzymes or some betaine HCl and some support for my digestive acid while I'm in a stressful period. And that's where EFT and hypnotherapy then improves that vagal toning, which improves your digestion. Because being in rest and digest, you start to release digestive enzymes in your saliva, your stomach acid gets released, gallbladder function, pancreatic function improves, because that whole nervous system is focused on digesting your food. If your nervous system is focused on fighting the beast, running, being stressed, blood flow leaves your digestive tract, goes to your extremities, and the focus is not on digestion. So managing your stress is also improving your digestion, improving your nutrient absorption, and therefore your health, because all of those nutrients are what contributes to your thyroid function.
So are there supplements that would help, like you said before, like that's when you would take your digestive enzymes if you're going through a stressful period? Normally maybe you don't, but are there any other sort of supplements or nutritional support that you think fits into that category?
Yeah, I always like to, with supplements, I like for people to get really specific about what you're trying to treat. For example, if you have that low stomach acid and you're really stressed, or you're getting lots of gas and bloating, then there's wonderful things out there like Iberogast is a herbal tincture that helps move the gas through or reduce the gas and bloating and improves digestion. And it's one of those things that's great to have in the cupboard, where you go, I'm just really reactive to food at the moment and getting a lot of pain from this gas and bloating. It is a herbal bitters, all natural, that I use in SIBO protocols and things. And then certainly there's a lot of recent research around daily probiotic use. So things have gone back and forth with probiotics for many years. But all the research from 2022, which you can find on Dr. Ruscio's website and podcast, he's done a whole episode on actual clinical research into probiotic use. Daily probiotic use improves your immune system. So it's not an immune booster. It helps with immune balance with those cells in the gut lining.
Okay.
But it also improves depression and anxiety symptoms. And they did a study where they used probiotics for 3 months and improved the microbiome, the immune system, depression and anxiety symptoms, and then stopped taking the antibiotics, and it went back
The
to
probiotics?
the baseline. They stopped taking the probiotics, and then all the symptoms came back.
Yeah.
So,
right. Wow. So
so
it didn't
the
just
recommendation, no,
to keep it
didn't
going. So it's
eliminate
not
them.
just that it makes it better and then you can just coast at a level. Like you've got to actually maintain that. Yeah.
So I do recommend a broad spectrum probiotic. In Australia and in America, they have something called LifeSpace, which is a wonderful, high quality one you can get at chemists. And
we can
think
get that here too.
Yeah. That's at Chemist Warehouse and all over the place. LifeSpace probiotics are great. Just as a daily maintenance. Also because your serotonin production is in your gut, things like that, I find a probiotic really, really useful for so many different symptoms. And if you've had bacterial dysbiosis and certainly constipation and things like that as well, it can improve those outcomes. In the protocol, in Heal My Hashies, week 1, I use L-glutamine. And that's an amino acid, a single amino acid, with lots and lots of studies showing that it improves leaky gut. So anyone with gut health issues, it's a great tool, particularly in the beginning, just to try to help heal those junctions, to tighten those junctions of the gut. And it's, a single amino acid, it's a protein that we use. So it's not going to impact you in any other way other than helping leaky gut. With other supplements, I sort of, again, I go, what are you trying to treat? Just recently, my T4 was getting quite low in my recent blood tests, and everything else is fine. T3 is fine, TSH is fine, but T4 is just getting a little low. And I've sort of noticed that as well. That's why we do the blood tests. And so I go, all right, how can I help boost my own T4 production? And that would be things like selenium and vitamin D and all of those essential nutrients that I'm probably just not getting enough of. And so, I take Thyroplex at the moment. I don't always, but just to get those essential nutrients and see if I can help my body kick into another gear. Certainly for nervous system people, I'll always recommend magnesium. Magnesium citrate has been shown to lower thyroid antibodies, but it also helps you calm the nervous system. It also helps with long-term constipation. So things like that. I like to get targeted with supplements. There's too many out there to take. There's too many recommended.
Oh my gosh, you can. And I mean, I think we talked about this
everything
before.
Under the sun.
Yeah, and you can take, even when not taking everything under the sun, you still end up taking quite a few. So, I'm usually swallowing handfuls and you think, and I do cycle and go through, depends on, obviously what's going on. And I work with a naturopath and a doctor, but there's always some.
Always something.
There's always something.
Yeah, I like to go through each round when I finish, say, bottles of supplements. I will identify what I was taking that for and whether I do need to continue, because some things you just need to top up for a little while and some things you do need to maintain long term, and identifying what that is really great with your practitioner especially. But certainly like writing down, say, the primary symptoms, things like if your main concern is fatigue, then, do you need a CoQ10, vitamin B, stress complex or something, methylated Bs every morning? Did that change your energy levels? Okay, good. That's right for you. Whereas, if you're sort of taking magnesium every night, but you're not calming down your nervous system, you're not going to the bathroom, then maybe we need to try something else for that nervous system health.
Yeah, that's been quite strategic, really, because in the end, supplements are expensive. So you don't want to be taking things that you don't need to be taking. And,
it's sort of, there's certain things you need to be careful of taking too much. We need to be cautious with iodine. Certainly
Yeah.
selenium becomes toxic in high doses. You need to
Yeah.
know what's in your supplements and whether you're doubling up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I've got afternoon sun's just coming into my. I'm just going to put
Blasting
the
you.
line down because I'm getting hot. The
Yeah.
sun's coming streaming in. The sun's streaming in. So, I mean, I love the way this conversation's we've really spoken a lot really about, stress, the stress connection, in with gut health, which I've really enjoyed that part of the conversation because
Good. Yeah.
It's not easy, and I think that's the thing that often we too tend to overlook, because it is easier to swallow a pill or not eat something, or it's just the easier path. So I'm just wondering, like, as we sort of, if we think of all the beautiful thyroid community that listen to our that's listening to the podcast, and that follow you on social media, like what would you say are a couple of key takeaways from this conversation, do you think, that
I would
people
say
can implement,
definitely,
or what are the most important things?
That the diet changes are not always the thing that is going to make the biggest difference to your health. Yes, they are essential. Yes, we all need to do them and support our autoimmunity. But if you're not getting better and you're frustrated, because the majority of messages I get is, I've cut out gluten and dairy, I don't eat sugar, I haven't been drinking, why aren't I getting better? That is one tiny, tiny component of autoimmunity. Let's look at the big picture. And sorry, my dog. This bigger picture, you have to take a look at your sleep, the nutrients or supplementation, your gut health in particular, your sleep and your stress management. And please don't ignore it, because if stress management is the key and you turn that key, you're going to get out the other side and go, oh my gosh, I was living in that quagmire of stress, and that was what was constantly triggering my autoimmunity. And again, a lot of messages I get are, I can't remove the stress from my life. I get that. None of us can. What we can do is implement strategies to help your body to manage that. So please seek those out. And it's not the same for everybody. If that is getting a massage once a week, just doing something for yourself where you can really switch off. For me, I love hot baths, a magnesium sulfate bath. To really switch off, actually have some time to yourself is so good for your body. Find what works for you, and don't be afraid to try a few things. And also knowing, which we should know, that it doesn't always work the first time. That stress management is a commitment, is a long-term application of strategies.
Lifestyle, perhaps.
It is a lifestyle. And certainly,
as much as the food is a lifestyle, the stress management is a lifestyle as well.
Stress management is a lifestyle. And I go in and out of it myself, and I'm not perfect. And the point is not to be perfect. The point is to try where you can to do just 10 minutes to take care of yourself, and drop into that rest and digest is going to help your body to heal. Don't underestimate the small touches of calmness in your life. I've just put together a bundle which I am releasing to the public. I've just given it to my Graves and Heal My Hashies clients at the moment, but it's a stress and sleep bundle of hypnotherapies. There's 10 hypnotherapies in there for stress and sleep, just because then you can just put it on, put your headphones on like this, noise cancelling, and go into that realm where you just give your body and your brain a break and let somebody else do the work. You don't have to do anything. You can actually just sit back and listen, and that can make a profound difference in a month, 2 months, and 3 months. That's when you'll actually notice the changes, and then you'll never go back. You sort of go, well, okay, that was the key to my autoimmunity, which it is for a lot of people. And just one more thing on that topic, only because it's come up a lot lately in my research and clients that I've been working with, is trauma. that trauma is a component in autoimmunity and very, very hard to treat. So hypnotherapy does deal very well with past trauma. It's very gentle. It's very effective at shifting, again, those neurological pathways that have found that groove because you've been living with it for so long. So to find that new groove, to find a new pathway of thought, can be really helpful. I use mantra quite a lot with just a positive affirmation with Hashimoto's. And a particular one that I use is I am safe. That our nervous system doesn't feel safe, so it's activated in that fight or flight. And a repetitive mantra, I am safe. I am safe. Even if you don't believe it, you are telling your body and your brain that you are safe, and it'll eventually take hold in your brain as a new pathway.
Yeah. I liked what you said about it maybe will take a couple of months to actually see the change. And I think that's something that we expect that with other things, but maybe we don't expect, I don't know. But we're as much as we know that things can take time, we still want the quick fixes. But, I think that's a really good reminder that if you do want to start tapping or, doing meditation or, listening to the hypnotherapy, any of those, or having a weekly massage or getting out the jigsaw puzzle or whatever it is, that it's not an instant fix. Like you might get some relief in the moment, but really what you're saying is stick with it for a couple of months, and that's when then you can actually really see the impact that it's having on your autoimmune health.
If you can think of it like a muscle, that nervous system activation, deactivation, you need to practice it for your body to recognize rest and digest and know how to relax. You need to be doing it. It needs to know what you're doing. It goes, that's right. When we breathe deeply is when we go into rest and digest. And the more your body can identify that shift, the more you can do it faster. You can just do a bit of deep breathing, like some square breathing or something before food, and your body will recognize that. But if you're never in rest and digest, which most of us aren't, it doesn't know how to get there on its own. You need to practice an instrument, like anything, like building a muscle. You've got to do that very consistently until it becomes easier.
Have you, this is just an out there question, have you
That's all right.
used like a Apple Watch or an Aura Ring or any of those things to measure your sympathetic nerve? Like you have?
Yes.
Yeah, I was listening to a great podcast with Dr. Eric Bolkovage and Ben Azizi or something like that, talking all about blood sugar and ketosis, but in amongst that talking about the parasympathetic, sympathetic nervous system and using all these kind of cool health tech tools to measure that and to see whether you actually are, moving into, moving the needle. And so, have you used any of those?
So I measure heart rate variability.
Yeah, that's what they were talking about. Yeah.
Right. So I have an Apple Watch. I used to have a Whoop. That's Snoopy on my Apple Watch.
I saw that in there. Yeah.
I used to use a Whoop. I'm originally a CrossFitter. CrossFit community are very much into recovery to be able to perform properly the next day. But I have found heart rate variability an incredible tool for me as a bit of a stress head to know when I'm doing too much. So heart rate variability, for those out there, or HRV, we are actually supposed to have a variable heart rate. It's not supposed to be rhythmic. Boom, boom, boom. It's supposed to go boom, 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 boom. That's healthy, funnily enough. And the higher your heart rate variability, actually, the better your stress response, the better your recovery and your health. So what happens is when you track it, so you can track heart rate variability on the Apple Watches, the new ones, and I have an app called Athlytic, ATHLYTIC.
Okay.
And it tracks all of these markers, and certainly like what you did the day before, you have little, whether I took Oh gosh. What's your stress anyway? Like whether you take magnesium, whether you took CBD, whether you worked out, like it's all in
Oh,
there.
yeah. So you can basically tracking
Whether
what
you
you've
had
done or
life stress,
taken.
job stress.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And then the impact
And
that has on your HRV. Yeah.
yeah. And
Mm.
so I track that because particularly when I'm working, training, if I'm doing a show or something and I get up and I want to train, how's my recovery? If I'm 18% recovered, I'm not going to train that day. I'll go for a nice walk in the sunshine very gently. And it's really giving you permission to take a step back and rest.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very proactive way of taking care of your health. You can see when you're getting sick. So let's say through the COVID years, and your heart rate variability is dropping dramatically, even though you're sleeping and taking care of yourself, you might be getting a virus or getting unwell. You'll tend to wake up sick, 3 days later and go, oh yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah,
But
interesting.
mostly for me, it's a way of really measuring how far I should push myself in workouts, or whether I really need a rest day. It's like, please, Libby, just take it easy, do yin yoga, just walk. And I've definitely noticed, so in reference to stress management, when I am meditating, when I am doing hypnotherapy, when I've been doing the being present, doing meditative walks rather than filling my brain constantly, I sleep better and I recover better. My HRV is significantly better. So you can see visible
I really liked that
outcomes.
idea of, I say I need that. That's probably why I get my bloods tested fairly frequently, because I like to stay on top of things. And like, I've got a Garmin, but it's a few years old now. And I was like doing all this research after I listened to that podcast. I'm like, I don't think this watch does it. Which one? Apple Watch does it. I did the Whoop and the Aura Ring, and then I was like, I've just closed all the tabs today because I got a bit overwhelmed. And I'm like, I think the idea of being able to track the impact on your central nervous system, or for me, I think I would find that quite a helpful tool.
I think for Hashimoto's in particular, where your recovery is connected with your hashies, where your sleep and your nervous system health is directly connected, I think it's a great idea to keep on top of it. If you're a data nerd, it's perfect. And I just went with the Apple Watch over Whoop in the end because it has a step tracker. So I like keeping track of that, and Whoop doesn't. It only keeps track of your workouts and your sleep and things like that. But yeah, Apple Watch just had a little bit extra, and it meant I could leave my phone at home and just have that on the walks and not have my phone.
That's true.
Trying to reduce the amount of technology since I'm online all day.
A lot. Yeah, that's right. So talking about that, tell us where, if people who are listening haven't come across you yet, maybe they're not on TikTok or Instagram, well, tell us, like, how can people connect with you? How can people, join your programs? Like, tell us a little bit about,
Yes, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook as Libby Munro Nutrition. And I am very, very active across my socials. So you can DM me anytime and I will end up talking to you. And I have released a protocol called Heal My Hashies. You can buy that off any of my socials or on my website. And it's a 12-week roadmap to remission. So to help you really look at the 8 pillars of autoimmunity, and I help you cover every single pillar. So it is not just a diet. It is an entire overhaul of your lifestyle to support your Hashimoto's. I've also got Heal My Graves and lots of gut healing protocols and things as well. So I treat Candida and UTIs and SIBO and Blasto and things like that because they all contribute to Hashimoto's. So I need to be able to help people across the board in all of the triggers. And so that's where I start, from the ground up. Let's heal your trigger and then heal all of the other components contributing to autoimmunity. I only have a wait list at the moment for one-to-one consultations, which I just apologise sincerely for. I hate that. I don't like it, putting people off down the road, but certainly looking at the back half of the year. Can you believe we're about to look at the back half of the year? I am
That's
going.
right. Yeah. Well, we're nearly May, almost May this week. Yeah.
So my focus coming up is a program called Fat Loss for Hashies, because I do find that it is a different kettle of fish in weight management for Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
And it is a great concern of a lot of my clients. And so I am going to approach this incredibly holistically, the same as I approach healing Hashimoto's, is all of the other components. We'll definitely be doing diet and exercise, but the other components. So I'm going to do group coaching for that and group coaching for Heal My Hashies, so that I can get more people on board.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Libby. Thank you for spending time with us talking all about all these different things. It's been really fun. And, I love, maybe we can actually have a cup of coffee one day, because we're actually
we're
in
right
the same
around
city.
The corner.
I know. So I love that. And so if you are listening from all around the world, hope you've enjoyed 2 Australian accents today.
Yes.
And, I know we have people from everywhere that listen to this show, which, like we said before, is fantastic. And you'll know that I like to wrap up by asking you to think about, what is the one thing. Just pick one thing that has come out of this conversation. I know there's been lots, but you probably won't action lots. But if you can just choose one that you can actually take action on, whether that's to research something, whether that's to follow Libby on socials, whether that's, whatever it is, go find a meditation or start tapping. Doesn't matter what it is, but find one thing and take action on it. And that way you're getting value out of all the great conversations that we have here on this podcast. And see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. If you have enjoyed the content, or perhaps you're thinking, oh, my mum needs to hear this, or my sister, or my bestie, I would love it if you would share this episode with them. That really just helps spread the positive and practical message of Let's Talk Thyroid, and helps that broader thyroid community, our friends and family, to live well with their thyroid health. So you can just, share the episode. If you subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, it's free. It's really helpful, because then you'll be notified every time a new podcast comes out, and it just makes it much easier to find. There's usually a little subscribe button, or a bell, or follow often is the terminology. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be helpful. Of course, if you want to leave a review, even better, just a sentence or two about how the podcast has helped you. You can definitely connect with me via letstalkthyroid.com. That's where you'll find access to my book, my coaching, my freebies, and really everything that I offer in terms of thyroid support.